And it's still happening, where people are still holding up the illusion that these things save lives. These things are not saving lives. What saves lives, frankly, is freedom to speak and freedom to find truth. What saves lives is immunity. You know?
Remember that guy? That's the Florida's Surgeon General, Joseph Ladapo. And that's when he was first getting in. He's waving around that mask, and he's like, remember these things? They don't work. That's been his whole approach. That's been the whole reason why Governor DeSantis even put him there in place. Well, there's news out now about his expertise and the way that he's been working on those numbers and the results of some of this COVID stuff. Let's take a look here. So this Florida Surgeon General, Joseph Ladapo personally altered a state-driven study about COVID-19 vaccines last year in order to suggest that some doses pose a significantly higher health risk for young men than had been established by the broader medical community. That's according to a newly obtained document. Maybe you guys remember that. They were talking about young men, 19 to, let's say, 30 or 34, that suddenly have these heart issues. There's more. Ladapo's changes, released as part of a public records request, presented the risks of cardiac death to be more severe than previous versions of the study. He later then used the final document in October to bolster disputed claims that Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna vaccines were dangerous to young men. It spread like wildfire. I think you guys remember that. As a matter of fact, even at this roundtable, as we see all of the Zoom call folks behind them, he was pushing it even further. Remember this?
Do you want to talk about what you found with the data in Florida looking at folks and the myocarditis?
Yeah, it's like, how many different ways do you want to say the same thing? So Joe here, Joseph, Dr. Freeman, we've got two Joes here, just shared their study that basically found that the risk with these mRNA COVID-19 vaccines is just much higher. It's not in the same ballpark as any of the other widely used vaccines.
So now that this has come out about him changing the results based off of what he wanted to see, he's disputing that. He's like, I'm a smart guy. I taught, I learned, I have this degree in that. This has nothing to do with politics. This is just my interpretation of the results. You'd have to have all the results, though, in order to get these types of interpretations. Look at this really fast. This isn't a graphic, guys, but this is over from Politico. It said the researchers who viewed a copy of the edits said Ladapo removed an important analysis that would have contradicted his recommendation. Daniel Salmon, director of the Institute of Vaccine Safety at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, called Ladapo's changes, quote, really troubling. So he can say he's got all these changes that happened, but at the end of it, he literally just changed it so it could fit the narrative of their political approach, so that Ron DeSantis could continue to say, yo, those masks don't work, as he's spinning it around his finger, and definitely not those vaccines, because if you're a young male, it's going to really hurt you. Weird, because I think they're trying to appeal to a certain demographic for voting purposes. I'd call that politics. But still, this has been the approach that he's taken, and now this is all coming out, he's still pushing this whole thing. I don't know, man. I think it was Chris Hayes tweeted earlier today or yesterday about this and pointed out how big of a scandal this really should be seen as. But Dan, I'm not really sure if people are seeing it that way.
It won't, because this was happening before COVID-19. As with many things, COVID-19 exacerbated existing flaws and issues with a lot of things that are going on, but specifically with American society and how we're taking in information. But people don't even want... there's just so much projection, because all these like COVID-19 deniers and people who are suggesting alternative forms of medicine and trying to undermine any form of scientific legitimacy. Say what you want to about the CDC, but there's a scientific community that's trying to reach towards getting a broader truth. And these are people who make up the vast majority of the scientific community, not the ones who just get on Twitter and buy blue checks and try to feed to a series of different podcast audiences about feeding them information they want to hear. But that's the thing about the American sort of like informational system right now, is that not only is it just projection, where you have this Florida official saying that, oh, look at what these COVID, like this entire complex is trying to hide from you. They're hiding reports and studies, and they're changing the information. Meanwhile, I'm hiding reports and studies and changing all that same information, or like the same topics of that stuff. But not only is it just that projection, but it's not going to change anything, like you said, because people are looking for who's going to tell them the right opinions first, the ones they want to hear, and then they'll check and go, oh, you see, this person's not wrong. How can they be wrong? They have this credential here, and they went to this school and that college. By the way, 10 minutes later, I'm going to be talking about how all these colleges are crap and they're teaching kids nonsense. So that is a perfect example. It's just what makes you feel comfortable, what makes Republicans specifically, especially these anti-vaxxers, comfortable in their blindness of information and reality. And it's unfortunate that they then will go towards people who are especially suffering from long COVID or more likely to catch COVID-19. They make lives harder for them because of their paranoid nonsense.
These are some of the factors that contributed to more deaths, more sicknesses, as you mentioned, even long COVID. And folks that are miserable right now, they will not blame the folks who talked them into it. Also, he was a supporter of hydroxychloroquine. That's all you really have to know about this guy.